Now, men are urged to take care of their health. The Men's Foundation has taken up an initiative to promote mental and sexual health and cancer awareness among the males. It says there's still a stigma attached to men seeking help, and some of this is due to patriarchal mindsets which need to be changed. That paradigm needs to be shifted. To discuss this further, we're joined by Garron Gsell, founder of Men's Foundation. Garron, thank you so much for joining us. I may not be the ideal candidate to talk about men's health, but nonetheless, having a boy child and even spouses, I suppose when men are going through their own life changes, it's still difficult to open up. Why is that?
Well, look, firstly, to the point about, men's health isn't just a men's related issue. It involves the women in our lives too, and knowing that with men's health seeking behaviors being a challenge, it's so often that it's the wives and brothers, the wives and daughters and sisters that are the ones that often prompt the conversation and get men to take better care of themselves. But it is a challenge that we see, on the one hand, men's patriarchal mindsets in terms of addressing their physical and mental health issues. And we see what the impact is in society today, as a result of men resorting to coping mechanisms, whether it be alcohol or drugs, and that reduction in inhibitions, and we see that within society with the high rates of gender-based violence, the high road fatalities with men's risk-taking behaviors on the one hand, but also from a policy perspective, that we need to have those programmatic interventions or programs that are supporting men, whether it be through the primary influence of early mortality, between prostate cancer and suicide and depression. So that's really the purpose of why we're running the Brovember campaign now, traditionally what's over the November period, and aligned to International Men's Day. That's on the 19th of November.
Okay, and just in terms of participation or the impact that you've had through the foundation in getting men to open up, especially if you're dealing with a historical socialization or rearing of men or boy children to be resilient, to be strong, to be providers, to be tigers, and you have to be rock solid regardless of what you're going through. How much of a difference has the foundation made just to create a safe environment for men to discuss their issues?
Well, certainly it's been an interesting journey. When we started out in 2009 with the Global Movember campaign, and since then in 2021 they withdrew from South Africa. But the conversations that we're getting men to have, and it's been an emotional evolution to break down these barriers and get men to realize that they don't have to suffer in silence and they don't need to be sitting in isolation in terms of seeking help and putting their hands up, and there's a role of society as well in terms of breaking the narrative, enabling those safe spaces for men to open up without being judged, without being criticized. But also then it's up for men now to start reaching out, and that's the exciting part with the programs that we're investing into, to provide those safe spaces for men to start those conversations, what we call the shoulder-to-shoulder conversations that break down these barriers.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this anecdotally, and it's sort of in part in jest, where you are told that, it's easier to raise a child who can contribute positively to society than what it is to repair an adult who's been damaged, be it through their own experiences, childhood traumas, etc. And your foundation is very, crucial in dealing with those kind of brokenness and the fact that men don't have an outlet. So what do the programs entail in terms of those that would want to engage with you, albeit just for a sympathetic ear or other interventions?
Certainly. So yes, it is a two-tiered approach. We do have the future generations of boys that are entering or growing up in society today that don't have those positive role models, and in terms of creating those environments for them. But we cannot forget about the men in our lives that are there. There is still the predominantly of the economy is dependent on men in this country, even though we're making great strides in terms of gender equality and ensuring that the economy is more broadly spread across the genders. But the programs that we've got, firstly about training first responders in dealing with men, in breaking down those barriers and creating a safe space where they start those conversations and directing them into the mental health care system. And we're partnering with Cape Mental Health on programs that we're developing through that. And then also those safe spaces where men can connect. And when I say it, I mentioned it earlier about this emotional evolution that's going on. It's been very proud and very, very exciting to see these men's forums and men that are starting to unite within communities, within companies, within organizations to unite and realize the need for us to heal the boy child, while also addressing what these challenges are that we've got with men in society today.
So what is the expectation from the fairer sex in the sense of support? Because, we all are going through very difficult times. And as you are rightfully saying, that the onus is on the men to take on their issues and seek the necessary interventions. But what is the expectation, or maybe how then does the fairer sex support the men in their lives through difficult challenges?
So part of what we need to address is in terms of the typical gender roles that we've experienced through time, where, and we mentioned it earlier about how the gender roles within the home have shifted, because now women being more empowered have entered into the workplace. Now, traditionally, men are no longer the breadwinners, and that support now, that dynamic has shifted for men to now also need that support from the women in their lives. And certainly during this time of November, where growing a moustache during the month and changing your appearance to prompt that conversation, it's certainly just the support from the fairer sex in our lives to acknowledge and just give that wink of appreciation or acknowledgement that men are actually taking action and keep dedicating their face to the cause for the month. And by doing that, changing their appearance, they start very much the conversation that breaks down those barriers, while then obviously fundraising to invest into these programs that we've developed.
So how's the family dynamics change, especially if the woman is now the main breadwinner and, the man having to take a more subservient role, if you will? Are they inclined to then do chores around the house in support of the woman, or are we still light years away from that kind of, dynamic being normalized in the home?
Well, there is that need for it. And we also know that the statistics indicate that over 60% of South African households are fatherless. So, and with the recent ruling that came out of the Johannesburg High Court from the Basic Conditions of Employment, where men are also going to be entitled to having paternity leave, it's also now important that these excuses that men have had for so long are now removed. So it's time for us to step up. And also, when we've been so dependent on our identity being around being the breadwinner and our positions within our jobs, and also which resulted in a lot of the economic abuse that was taking place in the household, this is where men have now been stumped to have to question what their role is, and understanding that they have to identify with who they are, what those values that we as men need to aspire to or align to, that's not externally focused, that's dependent on their financial positions or money or their role within the household. We've got to now integrate and obviously unite and build a family unit in this new society and this new social dynamic, where this has shifted from men and women being equal within the household.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you indeed for your time this afternoon. Garron Gsell, founder of the Men's Foundation, encouraging our counterparts to initiate conversations around the kind of assistance or challenges you may be facing mentally, physically, and otherwise, so that we can coexist in a harmonious environment in the household and workspaces as well.